Potomac Beads. Join me in making this antique ice necklace featuring our Eva and Ava beads in the Potomac's metal. If you need any supplies, check the links below me to shop with us online. Go ahead and gather up your materials and let's get started. So starting out my antique ice necklace, I've gone ahead and I have my supplies out. I have my 10 of my Ava beads in the Potomac's metal silver. I have 8 of my Eva beads. I have my 4mm crystals and then simply some Crystal Labrador 11O seed beads. So the nice thing is I have a very limited supplies list, and if you don't have one or the other, you can always just use this as an idea for a feature in a project that has multi-holes. So I have on here a series of 0.006 Wildfire beading thread, and I have a stop bead on about 5 feet of thread. I've gone ahead and added in a stop bead on it, and then I have about 4 inches of a pattern of 2 11O seed beads followed by a 4mm bead. This is going to be the end of the necklace prior to the addition of our Potomac's metal beads. I want to basic string, and if you don't have thread and needle, you can actually do this with beading wire as well. And what I'm going to do now is pick up my Eva bead, and I'm picking it up from the carrot side and sewing through to the open side. And this is after 2 11O seed beads. From here, I'm going to add 2 more 11O seed beads, because again, we're keeping the pattern really simple. 1 of my 4mm crystals, 2 11O seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up my next one of my Eva beads. The next Eva bead goes on in that same direction, starting on that V side or that carrot side, and then adding the next one. I'm going to do this 2 more times, and then we're going to start adding our Ava beads, which are going to hang down. So our Evas are going to sit like a chevron, and the Avas then will hang down and encapsulate our crystals as well at the bottom. Once you're done with your 4 Eva beads, you're going to go right into your Ava beads. You want a series of 7 of your Ava beads rather. And what you want for those 7 Ava beads is you want 3 11O seed beads. So I did 2 11O seed beads in between my Eva beads. Then when I got to the end of my 4th Eva, I switched to 3, then my crystal, then 3. Hung down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of my Ava beads, and these also are the Potomac's metal going through the top hole. And then after we do that, we put on our first of our Eva beads, our sets of 4 on the exterior or the opposite side. After adding my groups of 3 here, I'm going to switch to 1, 2, and then go back into my series of 2. So I'm going to do my 2 11O, then my 1 4mm. As you put the Evas on the opposite side, you're going to make sure instead of sewing in from the carrot side, you're going to sew in from the open side and add there. What that's going to do is frame out the necklace, so when I get into hanging my 2nd row, these Evas are going to face that they're pointing away from the Ava beads, and so is the other side also pointing away. So they're going to be facing in opposite directions. I'm going to go ahead and add my last 2 of my Eva beads, and then I'm going to continue with another 4 inches after doing so of just my 11O 4mm combination, and we'll get ready then to attach the first loop of our clasp. Once you have your whole design then of approximately 16 inches is what you're going to be doing. If you want to make it longer, make the beginning portion more than 4 inches. So you can make that more like 5, 6, 7 inches if you do want it to be longer. After your last 2 seed beads, you're going to put on your clasp, and I'm using the Claspgarten, and this is the looped oval crystal clasp. And I'm going through the very exterior hole. So there's 3 loops on the clasp. I'm going through one of the first ones. From here, I'm going to come back through and reinforce the entire project. So you're going to take your needle and thread back through the entire thing. So once you get going, it's really simple. The reason we're taking this back through the entire project is because the Eva beads are metal, it's a little bit heavier, and I want to make sure that I have 2 strands going through the necklace portion here, so that way it is a little bit stronger for the thread. So you're just going to take your needle and thread like I'm doing the whole way back through the necklace, the whole way till you get to your stop bead. When you get to your stop bead, you're actually going to come out before it, attach to that same loop on the other side of the clasp, and then we're going to build down from there. Now that I'm at the end of the piece here, I'm coming out right before that stop bead. And coming out right before that stop bead, what I want to do is attach to my other side of my clasp. Now I generally will take the clasp apart and have it in two separate sections, but to start out, you always want to have it so that you're going into that same loop. So have it attached here. Make sure you're going into the same loop on the opposite side. We're going to sew down through the clasp right there. And what I want you to do then is kind of remove the stop bead a little bit and tie those two thread ends together. So you're going to tie right over left, left over right. And that's going to get those two thread ends tied together. If you're using a different style clasp, you obviously would do that now. If the clasp has big enough loops, you can also use a wire guard or a wire protector, it's called. And there I have now my first section of my necklace completed and my beads hanging down, ready for me to add layer number 2. To add my second loop, I'm going to go from the back of the clasp over to the center right there, to that center loop. We're just going to decorate the center loop with one bead. So we're using one 11-0 seed bead. We're not actually going to use the center loop. And then we're going to go back down through the clasp. So we're coming out the top. We add one 11-0 seed bead just to decorate that clasp, back down, and the seed bead will just sit in there nicely. So if it's twisted, just kind of untwist it a little bit. Your seed bead will just sit and kind of cover up the hole a little bit. From there, come out the bottom hole of the clasp, from the bottom to the top on that last portion. And now we're going to go back down here and we're going to start to get our second row in along the edge. To start the second row, we're doing the exact same thing where we're adding 2 seed beads and then we're adding our crystal in between. Once you get your 15 crystals on, or your 4 to 6 inches, however many you want, right before my first one of my Eva beads, instead of adding 2 seed beads, I'm going to add 3. That makes up the differential of just the difference of the clasp very, very easily. Go through then your second hole of your Eva bead, and your strands there will sit nice and right next to one another with the clasp kind of suspended there at the end. So it's going to look even though we added just 1 extra little seed bead. From here, what you're going to do is we're going to start to add our second row. So the second row here, again, you're going to add 2 11-0 seed beads, pick up 1 of your crystals, 2 more 11-0 seed beads, and sew through your next one of your Eva beads. This time again, we're sewing from the carrot side down towards the bottom. You can see that that'll sit kind of right there, nice and in the center. I'm going to continue to do that the whole way down till I get to my Eva beads, where I'm going to switch to the 3 and then 1, 3 pattern. We're going to go into our first one of our Eva beads and hang down one of our crystals from the bottom. Once you come out of the last one of your Eva beads, above in the strand we had normally 3 11-0 seed beads followed by 1 crystal and then 3 11-0 seed beads. As we get to the bottom here, in order to create that arching effect and the Evas taking up more space with their V shape, we're going to be downgrading the amount of seed beads that we use between each one of our beads. So instead of 3 to 1, we're doing 2, 1, 2. When you go through your first Eva bead, you're going to pick up your first of your 6 by 12 millimeter Potomac Crystal Briolette and string straight through. Underneath the 313, in between the Eva beads, you're going to use 1 crystal to 1 seed bead on each side. Go ahead and string through your next briolette. Again, 1 crystal to 1 seed bead on each side. When we get to the center 3 of our Eva beads, I've already done 2, so I can show you kind of what they look like. What we're going to do is make a more dramatic effect for that netting as it lays on your neck. So what I've done is I've added another one of my Eva beads right below, and I'm just doing this to the center 3. If you want to do it to more, you can do that as well. It'll just require more of your Eva beads. Another color would also look great. So coming out after you go through one of your Eva beads, and again I have 2 that just have the drop and then 3 in the center that are doubled, I add another Eva bead right through the top instead of the briolette. Coming out the Eva bead then, what you're going to do to attach the briolette to the bottom is add on your thread and needle 4 11-0 seed beads. We're going to sew from the top hole of the Ava and the bottom hole of the first one to the bottom hole of the second Ava. That's going to put the seed beads right on the side of those 2 Ava beads. Go ahead and pick up your briolette, add that onto your needle, and then sew through the other side of that bottom Ava bead. When you sew through the other side of the bottom Ava, just make sure your briolette is sitting nicely. Coming out of there, add 4 more of your 11-0 seed beads. Pick up your thread and needle then and sew through the top hole, or the bottom hole of the top Ava, as well as, again, the top hole of the Ava that you just added. Basically circling the thread around in order to add that additional drop. From here, go ahead and repeat then the whole way to the end of the design. The same exact thing that we did, adding 1 11-0, 1 crystal, 1 11-0 into the next Ava. As I go into the next 2 Avas, I'll just add 1 singular drop. Coming out the last Ava then, just add your 2 11s, 1 crystal, 2 11s, and then proceed with that the whole way back through the design. Coming out the last 11-0 Ava, just keep in mind you want to add that 1 extra 11-0 so it sits correctly for the clasp. When we get to the end then, we'll attach to the open side of the clasp, and I'll show you how to do that. When you get to the end of the design, you're going to go up through the bottom of the open hole of the clasp, and then just like we did with the other one, you're going the whole way back to the end. When you get the whole way back to the end, you're going to just tie off the extra thread, use your thread burner, and your necklace will be complete. If you want to, you can do a whole nother strand going through and take the thread back down around to reinforce, but you're all good to go. Again, when I get to the end there, I'll go ahead and burn off the thread, and then your antique ice necklace is completed and finished, and it has a lovely draping to it that will look great on your neck. Thanks so much for joining me in making this antique ice necklace. I wanted to put it on so you could see how it hangs in just that lovely vintage look of almost a vintage crystal necklace from the 20s. As always, if you need any of the supplies, check out the links below to shop with us online. Remember also, you can comment as well as ask questions and give ideas to other beaders in the section below. Remember also, if you haven't yet, click that subscribe to get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. As always, thanks so much for watching, and hopefully this inspires you to create your own antique ice necklace.